Imagine two forces meeting in the same room. One feels everything, one takes everything. The empath, the narcissist, like water meeting fire, like soft silk brushing against a blade. The empath is born to heal, to love, to carry the weight of others. But when that love is poisoned, when that compassion is twisted, the empath forgets their true strength. And then, my friends, the empath begins to fight badly. They overgive, they pour and pour until their spirit is dry. They think sacrifice will change the wolf into a lamb. They mistake endurance for victory. But endurance without wisdom becomes a slow death. The empath tries to argue with the narcissist. But you cannot wrestle with smoke. You cannot convince a mirror that it is broken. The more words you use, the more power you lose. This is the bad way. This is the way of wasting your breath. The empath tries to love the narcissist. But love to the narcissist is a banquet they will never thank you for. Every dish you serve is swallowed without gratitude, without pause. And the empath, thinking they are proving their worth, is only proving they can be drained. The empath fights badly when they forget boundaries. When they confuse compassion with submission. When they mistake forgiveness for permission. They bow lower and lower, hoping to rise together. But the narcissist does not rise. They only step on the back of the one who kneels. I tell you, compassion is not weakness. Love is not slavery. Kindness without strength is like a sword without a blade. It shines in the light, but it cannot cut through darkness. An empath fights badly when they try to heal what does not want to be healed. When they try to save what is committed to its own destruction. This is like trying to pour water into a basket woven of fire. No matter how much you give, it burns away and you are left empty-handed, blistered, broken. The way of Shaolin teaches balance, hard and soft, stillness and strike. Even the monk who meditates in silence knows when to raise his fist. Even the healer knows when not to heal. But the empath, lost in the illusion, forgets. They fight with endless patience instead of fierce clarity. They fight with words instead of silence. They fight by lowering themselves instead of standing tall. This is how the empath fights badly against the narcissist. By refusing to see that the battle cannot be won on the narcissist battlefield. Strength without wisdom is brutality. Wisdom without strength is surrender. The empath must wake up before their heart becomes the narcissist's throne. Do you feel it? The fire inside you that says enough. The drum of your heartbeat calling you back to your own power. The echo of your spirit reminding you, you are not here to be consumed, you are here to rise. The empath often fights badly by overgiving, draining themselves while believing sacrifice will transform the narcissist. Arguing with the narcissist is futile because they cannot be convinced or changed through words, only leaving the empath weaker. Overloving a narcissist only feeds their endless hunger without gratitude, leaving the empath empty and diminished. Confusing compassion with submission and forgiveness with permission causes the empath to lose their power and dignity. Trying to heal someone who resists healing is like pouring water into fire, leaving the empath burned and broken. True strength comes from balance, love with boundaries, compassion with clarity, and the courage to walk away when needed. The empath often fights badly by overgiving, draining themselves while believing sacrifice will transform the narcissist. Imagine a river pouring endlessly into a desert. The river believes its gift will bring life, that the seeds buried in the sand will one day bloom. So it keeps flowing day after day, night after night, until the current grows weaker, until the riverbed cracks with exhaustion. And still the desert remains barren, swallowing the water without gratitude, without change. This is the trap the empath falls into, mistaking endless giving for power, mistaking exhaustion for devotion. The empath feels the pain of the narcissist and thinks, if I love harder, if I give more, they will soften, they will awaken. But a starving wolf does not become gentle because you feed it. It only grows stronger, hungrier, bolder. And the empath, thinking they are the healer, becomes the feast. Overgiving is not generosity, it is surrender disguised as virtue. It is the silent bargain of the heart that whispers, if I empty myself, perhaps they'll finally see me. If I carry their weight, perhaps they will finally care for mine. But the narcissist does not see. They only take. The empath confuses depletion with dedication, forgetting that love was never meant to feel like bleeding. This is how the empath fights badly. By measuring their worth in how much pain they can endure, how much they can pour, how much they can lose before breaking. They forget that true compassion has boundaries, that true love never asks for self-destruction. Think of the warrior monk. He trains his body, sharpens his mind, deepens his heart. But when the enemy comes, he does not hand them his sword as a gift. He does not fall to his knees and say, "Strike me, for I am strong enough to take the blow." No, his strength is in his balance, in knowing when to open his hand and when to close his fist. The empath who overgives is a warrior who has laid down his weapon, believing sacrifice alone will conquer the battlefield. But sacrifice without wisdom is not victory. It is surrender dressed in noble robes. Arguing with a narcissist is futile because they cannot be convinced or changed through words, only leaving the empath weaker. Picture standing in front of a mirror, shouting at your reflection. You can scream until your throat is raw, plead until your eyes flood with tears, but the mirror does not answer. It does not change its shape to comfort you. It only reflects back what it wants you to see. This is the battlefield of the narcissist. Endless debate, endless distortion, endless circles that lead nowhere. The empath, armed with truth and sincerity, steps forward with the belief that clarity can heal confusion. They speak from the heart, they bring evidence, they weave reason like silk threads, certain that the narcissist will finally understand. But the narcissist does not listen to understand, they listen to twist, to deflect, to wound. Words that were meant to bridge become weapons turned back on the speaker. And soon the empath finds themselves drowning in their own language, exhausted, lost in the maze of manipulation. It is a cruel illusion. The idea that if you explain enough, love enough, reason enough, you can break through. But the narcissist thrives in the storm of arguments. They feed on the energy of the conflict, on the desperation in your voice, on the hope flickering in your eyes. They win not by proving you wrong, but by watching you unravel, by pulling you into a game where victory was never possible. The empath fights badly here because they believe truth is enough. But truth in the wrong arena becomes a sacrifice, not a weapon. The narcissist does not seek truth, they seek control. To argue with them is to step into their temple, kneel at their altar, and offer them your strength disguised as conversation. Think of the Shaolin monk faced with a storm. He does not raise his fist to strike the wind. He does not shout at the thunder. He stands grounded, still, knowing that storms pass but the mountain remains. The empath must learn this same stillness. To see that words wasted on deaf ears are not courage but surrender, and silence itself can become the sharpest blade. Overloving a narcissist only feeds their endless hunger without gratitude, leaving the empath empty and diminished. Imagine a grand feast prepared in the dead of night, every dish seasoned with devotion, every plate arranged with care, every flavor crafted from the deepest corners of the heart. The empath lays this banquet on the table, trembling with hope that the guest will finally smile, finally soften, finally see the love that bleeds from every offering. But the narcissist does not savor. They devour, they consume as though entitled to every grain, every drop, every ounce of tenderness, no word of thanks, no glance of recognition, just the scraping of a plate, the reaching for more, the hunger that never ends. The empath believes their love is alchemy, that by pouring enough sweetness, they can turn bitterness into gold. They think if they love louder, love deeper, love harder, the stone heart will finally crack and reveal something human. But love, when poured into a bottomless pit, becomes a kind of self-destruction. It is like throwing jewels into the ocean, precious, shimmering, swallowed forever by the waves. What the empath does not see is that love without boundaries is not love at all. It is fuel for the fire of someone else's ego. It is giving without receiving until the soul begins to fray at the edges. The empath starts to measure their worth in how much they can endure, mistaking depletion for devotion. They forget that love was meant to nourish both, not starve one to keep the other full. Think of a flame. When it burns steady, It gives warmth, it gives light, it gives life. But when the flame is forced to burn without pause, when it is fed with no rest, it consumes itself, collapsing into ash. This is the fate of the empath who over-loves a narcissist, a fire that once gave life, reduced to nothing but smoke. In Shaolin, love is balance, discipline, harmony. A monk may offer compassion, but he also knows the edge of his blade, the boundary of his breath. The empath must remember that love without strength is not love. It is surrender disguised as kindness. And surrender only feeds the hunger of those who will never be fooled. Confusing compassion with submission and forgiveness with permission causes the empath to lose their power and dignity. Compassion is a sacred force, like water flowing from the mountain. It nourishes, it heals, it brings life wherever it touches. But when compassion is twisted into submission, it no longer heals, it drowns. The empath, in their desire to love, begins to bow lower and lower, mistaking surrender for kindness. They kneel not out of humility, but out of fear that standing tall will cost them love. Yet every time they bend, they teach the narcissist how far they can be pushed, how much they can take without consequence. Forgiveness, too, is a beautiful gift, a way of releasing anger, a way of freeing the soul. But in the hands of the empath, forgiveness can become a chain. Again and again they forgive, not because the wound has healed, but because they hope forgiveness will inspire change in the one who keeps cutting them. Yet each act of forgiveness, without boundaries, becomes silent permission. It whispers, "You may harm me again and I will still remain." This is how dignity is lost, not in one great collapse, but in 1,000 small surrenders. The empath thinks they are practicing love, when in truth they are handing over their power piece by piece, until one day they look in the mirror and see only fragments of themselves. Submission has stolen their voice. Permission has shackled their spirit. Imagine the Shaolin monk standing before an enemy. He is filled with compassion, yes, but he does not place his neck beneath the blade. He does not confuse his open heart with an open weakness. His compassion is strong because it is disciplined, because it knows its boundaries. He forgives the enemy's hatred in his heart, but he does not invite the sword to strike again. The empath who confuses compassion with submission forgets that true kindness has a backbone. The empath who confuses forgiveness with permission forgets that mercy without limits is not mercy at all. It is surrender in disguise, a gift that costs the giver their very soul. Trying to heal someone who resists healing is like pouring water into fire, leaving the empath burned and broken. The empath sees the wounds of the narcissist, the cracks in their armor, the shadows in their eyes, the deep hunger for validation that no feast can ever satisfy. With a heart full of compassion, the empath steps forward, believing their love is medicine, their patience a cure, their devotion the missing key. But what they forget is this: healing cannot be forced upon a closed heart. No salve can mend a wound that refuses to close. No light can awaken someone who chooses to live in the dark. The empath becomes like the healer who kneels beside a raging flame, cupping water in their bare hands, throwing it again and again, certain the fire will finally dim. But the fire only hisses, only spits, only spreads hotter. And as the empath keeps pouring, their hands blister, their strength fades, and still the flames roar. In the end, it is not the fire that is consumed, it is the healer. There is a dangerous illusion here, the belief that love alone can transform what does not wish to change. The empath confuses persistence with power, thinking that enough endurance will melt the stone heart, enough patience will tame the storm. But what they do not see is that the narcissist thrives in this cycle. The more the empath gives, the more the narcissist resists, because resistance itself becomes their control. The empath is trapped in the endless hope of tomorrow while bleeding out today. In the way of Shaolin, the healer must also be the warrior. The monk may offer medicine, but he does not force it down the throat of the unwilling. He may open the door, but he does not drag the wounded through it. He knows that true healing begins not in the hands of the healer, but in the heart of the one who chooses to rise. The empath who keeps pouring into the fire must awaken to this truth: you cannot rescue someone who clings to their chains. You cannot heal someone who worships their wounds. To try is not compassion, it is self-immolation disguised as love. True strength comes from balance, love with boundaries, compassion with clarity, and the courage to walk away when needed. Too often, the empath believes strength means endurance, the ability to carry pain like a badge of honor, to love without limit, to forgive without pause. But endurance without wisdom is not strength, it is slow erosion. Real strength is not measured by how much you can suffer, but by how deeply you honor yourself while loving others. Balance is the heart of all things. In Shaolin, the warrior trains both fist and spirit, stillness and strike. To be only soft is to be crushed. To be only hard is to shatter. The power lies in knowing when to yield like water and when to rise like stone. The empath forgets this. They give endlessly, like a river with no dam, until their waters run dry. But water, when directed, can carve mountains. Love, when guided by boundaries, can transform lives without destroying the giver. Compassion with clarity is the secret the empath must remember. To feel another's pain does not mean carrying it as your own. To forgive does not mean returning to the fire. To love does not mean accepting harm. Clarity is the lantern in the darkness, the reminder that your soul is sacred too, that your heart deserves the same gentleness you long to give. And then comes the hardest lesson of all, the courage to walk away, not in anger, not in hate, but in strength. To step back from the narcissist is to reclaim the ground beneath your feet, to breathe again, to rise from your knees, and remember you were never meant to be a servant to someone else's emptiness. Walking away is not abandonment, it is alignment. It is the act of saying, I choose life, I choose peace, I choose me. The empath must learn this truth. Love without boundaries is chaos, compassion without clarity is bondage, and strength without the courage to walk away is only another name for captivity. Balance is the path. Balance is the weapon. Balance is the freedom that turns suffering into wisdom and pain into power. You were never born to be devoured. You were never meant to live as fuel for another's fire. Your heart is not an altar for the ungrateful. Your love is not a well to be drained until the stones run dry. Look at yourself now, the scars, the weight, the ache in your spirit. These are not signs of weakness. They are proof of your capacity to love, yes, but also proof of your silence, your surrender, your forgetting. And now it is time to remember. Remember that love is not meant to break you. Remember that compassion is not meant to chain you. Remember that strength is not endurance alone. It is choice, it is clarity, it is the courage to rise from your knees. You are not the endless river that must keep pouring into deserts that never bloom. You are not the banquet prepared for those who only devour and never bless. You are not the healer who must set yourself on fire to keep another warm. You are the flame itself, fierce, radiant, untamed. So stand tall, feel the ground beneath your feet, hear the drum of your heart, steady, powerful, alive. The narcissist cannot own that. They cannot touch that. They cannot steal what was never theirs. You are balance, you are strength, you are love with boundaries, compassion with clarity, and silence sharper than any sword. The empath who awakens is unstoppable. The empath who remembers their worth is unshakable. The empath who chooses to rise is unbreakable. Do not beg to be seen. Do not kneel to be loved. Do not shrink to be accepted. Rise, breathe. Stand in the fire of your own becoming. And when they try to pull you back, when they reach for the pieces of you they once consumed, let them taste only air. Let them grasp only shadows. Let them see not the servant they once fed upon, but the warrior they can never touch.